and she's got no furniture in her house and she's an interior designer? What?
Okay. No, you're fine. You're fine. So we're recording, so we can start whenever.
I might need somebody to come sit with me. I'm just
You're
kidding.
fine.
No.
It's not high pressure at all.
No, I'm teasing. Okay.
Just sitting next to the
I'm all
woman.
good. And do I give really honest answers?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So just to start out, we were wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about your career, like the job description.
So I'm an interior designer, and I got there by way of knowing I wanted to do something I started out in fashion, like design, wasn't sort of sure, but did the fashion thing, way too much pressure and too much just, I don't know, false stuff. And priority was having children, so I wasn't gonna do the other. So I knew I could do that being a mom. But job description, I'm basically, depends on the day. It's definitely creative. It's filled with a lot less creative than I wish, because you've got to do all the business backside, and that's not my forte. So I would suggest everyone get whatever little background in business, because even if you're on the more artistic side, like I know you are interested in Mahala, you're so smart to pursue the business. I've sort of had to teach myself and sort of learn by making mistakes and all, but I worked for a large company and then broke off on my own, and I just have one business partner, and we have 2 people that work for us, and we're just hiring somebody else. So growing all the time.
And what type of schooling process did you go through to get where you are now?
Well, I actually did not major in anything to do with it. I majored in social work and abnormal psychology, and it helped because dealing with people and understanding it's such a personal process. So when I was majoring in that and my parents were like, what are you gonna do short of being a social worker? It's helped a whole lot, because I don't know. But in terms of, then I did, after graduation from college, I did do a graduate program at New York School of Interior Design, which was really, it was good. And I don't want to say it's not important to do, because education, whatever, the more you learn, the better, and the skills. I wanted to learn to draft and be able to do some architectural things as well. And of course, right when I got to that level, I did all the hand drawing and all of that. But then to get up to today's standards, you need to know how to do all the computerized stuff, obviously. And right when I was getting there, I ended up getting a job. I knew who I wanted to work for, and I had made contact with them, and they ended up reaching out to me and saying, hey, we have a job and we think you're the perfect one. And I turned it down because I was like, oh no, I'm just getting to all the AutoCAD and all this stuff. And they immediately said, we'll give you 48 more hours to think about this, because I think you're making a mistake, and go talk to the dean of students. And so I went and said, this is kind of the company I wanted to work for, X, Y, and Z, but what do I do? And they said, take the job. It's more important, you've got this background. But really, I think in a lot of these design things, it's more the work in the field and really just learning in the real world. So they actually gave me my money back and said, go take the job and don't finish. So that's what I did.
So, would you say that right now this is your dream job of being an interior designer? So, you said before you were working in fashion. So, how would you describe the transition from going to the fashion industry to going into interior design?
Let's see. Well, it definitely is my dream job in many ways. There are always not fun parts of it, like I say. That's life. But the transition, I knew, like I said, I was just interested in fashion. I thought, oh great, I want to work in a magazine, all of this. But I think it was just a personality thing. You have to be pretty cutthroat in that and really competitive, and those are not qualities that I possess. So I wanted to go into something else that was along those lines, and I loved interiors, and it's creative in different ways. So I don't know, it just sort of flowed. I actually, when I worked at Vogue magazine, and when I was there, I did a lot of the big events. Did you ever watch that like Met Gala that just goes on?
Yeah.
So when I used to organize that because my boss was in charge of that, and so after that I was like, oh, maybe, that's creative because you've got to come up with all the, cool decorations and whatever. And so I did a brief stint afterwards in events thinking, and then I was like, oh God, no, it was not fun at all, because everything was just like a panic at the last minute, and you're doing all this great creative stuff that just is done in one night. You have a party and then it's over and done with. So that's where I ended up. I was like, I think I'm making my way to interiors. My mom had been an interior designer, and probably a lot of people try to go away from the path of what their parents may or may not have done, and so it's like, no, I'm not going to do that, and came back to it. So that's what I do. Yeah.
And what made you decide that you wanted to start your own company rather than working for a bigger company?
That was a hard decision. But I guess first of all, it was because I knew I wanted to have children, and that was sort of my priority. And when you're working for someone like that, I knew I always wanted my kids to be the first thing. Like if someone was sick, sorry, nothing's more important. I won't be there. I'm going to be with my kid. And you can't do that as much, when somebody else is. I'm being interviewed right now.
I do.
They're recording it for school.
It's just we can cut it out. We can cut it.
Wait, where was I? Anyway, it was more the.
Yeah, of course.
Oh.
No, it's fine.
We can cut it out.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
No, you're
Do you
fine.
know my line field card? I never got
Look
it.
in my wallet upstairs. It might be blue. Look in my credit cards. It's one in there.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
You're fine.
Okay, what was I talking about?
Children
Branching
first
out,
priority.
yeah.
Oh, and having my own business relative to, okay. It was mainly that flexibility, and just, I wasn't based in the city anymore, and commuting in to work for somebody else and have them be like, you're a half hour late, when you can't help it if traffic is, what it is. So now it's more pressure in many ways when it's your own, but it is your own, and I'm learning more and more with cell phone and everything, like draw lines, I turn my phone off. That's why I have a second phone that you saw earlier. Just like, because you do have to learn to draw boundaries, especially when it's your own, and there are pitfalls. There's some days that I wish that I did work for somebody else, like not have to pay for my own health insurance and know a straight salary, because with something like this, I never know if I'm making X a month or nothing a month. It all depends. So, sorry. I mean, I turn that ringer off. So, but overall, it's nice being your own boss, and the clients are still my boss. So I answer to my clients, and I always sort of joke, but I'm kind of, I'm a glorified maid at times. I do everything. There's nothing that you don't do, and that's one thing I do like, is every day is sort of different, and so that's that.
And what challenges have you faced in your career path? And do you think that being a woman has ever created a larger challenge for you? And what you were saying about having kids earlier, did you ever feel, okay, sorry, I'm doing a lot of questions.
No, it's okay.
But did you ever feel like sometimes when you had to put your kids above your job, that your job would like hold it against you, kind of?
I did, and I definitely worried about that, and that was one of the big things of my wanting to do my own business. You know, that said, I have plenty of good friends that work for big corporations, and they just let people know that that's it. At the end of the day, if I have a sick child or there's something else, you know, you can do it, but it's obviously easier when you have your own thing. And then, wait, what was the first part of the question?
It was about like, do you think that in your workplace, like being a woman has ever had any like negative?
Okay, I knew there was a good meat to that question. Yes, as a matter of fact, and unfortunately it happens more than I wish. Just 2 weeks ago, so we're running this project, we're doing construction, we're, you know, managing the contractors. It's all men on the job. My business partner is also a woman, and she's about a foot shorter than me, and, you know, whatever, blonde, and you go in and you can imagine these guys sort of when we're like hammering them for deadlines and, you know, when's this,
Yeah.
and, you know, we go in there and we've got charts and graphs of like what is and isn't done, and, you know, they're sort of rolling their eyes. Unfortunately, the reality is, as much of a like women's lib person I am, sometimes you just have to play the game. And I said to Ben, I couldn't sleep, I was super stressed, and he started a construction management part of our company, but, you know, we're on separate projects. But I said, I need you to cancel what you're doing tomorrow, and you need to come out with me and Beth, my partner. And it's sad, but when he walked through the door, I hate to say it, and these guys who are busting,
Listening
you know,
more.
trying to like beat me down as sort of like, oh, you know, treat me like, you know, little girl, go away, you know, stupid little blonde girl. I'm like, no. And Ben walks in, he's like, how are you? And, you know, hands him his card from our company, and everyone sort of stands at attention. And it stinks, but, you know, and my way of dealing with that is I kind of smile. I don't seem bitter about it. I try and not acknowledge that, you know I sort of pulled one back over on them, and I'm
Yeah.
sort of like, okay, anyone have any questions? Because we're all here, and get the work done.
But he's gonna ask the same thing that I'm asking of
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Exactly, but you know, it's sad, but it's true. Like, and especially in a male-dominated business, like even though there are a lot of women, you know, in interior design, and, you know, there are plenty of men, gay men, straight men, there's everything, but it's generally, you know, led by people think of it as women and gay men, and they, you know, we can be totally marginalized, and you kind
It's
of
also like people you're working with, like construction people, like that's
Yeah.
yeah, and it's that sort of macho thing
Yeah.
and whatever, but, you know, my way of it, and it sort of depends, the beauty of having a business partner, my partner and I are very different personalities. Like, she's very strong and tough, and, you know, there are times where I'm like, you shut your mouth, you know, don't say a word. You can, you know, sometimes you just have to kill people with kindness and be, especially when you're asking things of people. You know, I don't find it's never a good attack to, or for my position to kind of berate people into working hard for you. You know, I don't think that brings the best, but that piece where sometimes like the softer, nicer female touch
Yeah.
doesn't
Like
always
sometimes
work.
you have to be the bad guy.
And you gotta bring in the bad guy. So if Beth can't be enough of a bad guy, we're like, all right, Ben, come on. And then all the guys on the site are like, oh, yes, sir, okay. So it's a bummer, but, you know.
And why do you think this is an important business for women to be a part of?
You know, I guess in the beginning, I always thought I was doing this as sort of a side thing. I didn't ever look at it as a business where I was going to support myself. So I first went into it because of the flexibility. Like, it's a good thing for women, you know, where you can kind of have both. But you know, it is such a personal thing, and I think a lot of times, I had another company before, and one of my business partners was a guy, a gay guy. He just, it's great to have that balance there, but I do think there's something, kind of the intuitive thing that women can have, and more often than not, it's, you know, if it's a couple that we're working for, we usually deal with the women. And it's it's just a personal process. So I think it does pay. But again, there are certain times where a previous client of mine, he's actually ended up hiring a male. I basically fired him as a client because he was kind of a jerk. And I was like, you need to work with a male decorator, because he's just one of those people that I think at the end of the day didn't respect what I was doing was the same work that a man in the field might be doing. I don't know. So in that regard, you know, at least I have the freedom. You know, I did it in a nice way, but I was like, no more, you know. And you can pick and choose your clients to a certain degree, and but I don't know. I think that female thing, it does work in the balance, especially between the husband and wife. Like, you know, we get involved, you know, about people's finances and all of it, and I think you need kind of like a softer approach sometimes that the females might possess.
What would you say to like a younger girl who was wanting to be an interior designer, like that was like their dream job, like, got following there?
I would say, you know, I was just interviewing because I'm really excited. I'm hiring a new assistant this week. And she's a year out of college, and she was saying, you know, do I have to go to school? Do I have to, you know, she's graduated from, you know, has her bachelor's degree. But, you know, depending, I think it is a job, a business where your more time on the ground is valuable. You learn on the job. And so it is one of the few things, maybe not few, but it's unique in that a lot of things, you know, you've got to go to business school for, or you have to go to law school, or you've got to do all these things. And it's a business that it would be amazing if you could get out and start and maybe sort of take some side classes or whatever, but you don't need to. You just have to kind of get in there and get your hands dirty and learn from the process and hopefully love it, because, you know, it's a headache. You definitely feel a bit like Cinderella sometimes doing, but, you know, it's good. So
Do you guys want to ask any more?
Heather,
They want to hear.
We could ask.
girly. Nobody's allergic to dogs, are they?
I'm like semi-allergic,
Oh,
but not
okay.
really. Like
She's a shatter. She's
no,
a
like
nut.
it's totally fine. I've been sleeping at my heels with her dogs, and like I'm good.
Okay, good. Sorry.
You already talked about being a mother. I think.
I feel like we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I love my